Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Hodson with Kevin Renshaw here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, home to the most touchable warbirds in Texas. And we're doing another YF-16 restoration update today. So this is Kevin, and before we give the whole thing, we're going to have him show you our new shirts.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so the restoration crew, all of our people on restoration crew wear these, and I'll turn around again and get them the graphic again. That is a YF-16 there on the shirt. So it's subtle differences, but that's what that is. So we got Javier with us today. Hi, Javier. As soon as we get this airplane to fly,
A little air traffic.
Yeah, a little air traffic. So what kind of things are we going to talk about today, Kevin?
Okay, last time we talked, I think it was back in September, and we had just gotten the wings down here. We were talking about getting ready to put them on.
Right.
We've got the hardware to install things. What we decided is it's easier to work on getting old paint off the wings while they're down here on the ground level,
right,
instead of trying to do that and trying to paint things while you're upside down. So we're trying to get everything prepped. We're also working on fixing the leading edge flaps.
Okay.
Leading edge flaps are kind of unique. YF-16 was one of the first airplanes to have continually variable leading edge flaps. Other airplanes in the past had a takeoff and landing setting.
Okay.
YF-16 with the fly-by-wire flight controls was infinitely variable in there, and it was scheduled with angle of attack and airspeed.
Now were those controlled that way, or they were like the A4 where it was air pressure that kept?
No, these were controlled. There was a hydraulic drive that went through a drive shaft, came down the leading edge, and each of these pockets you see in the wing leading edge spar had a gear drive in it, a planetary gear drive called leading edge flap drive. It was a 50-to-1 gear reduction. There was a drive shaft that came out of the fuselage, and there was a single motor on the center line of the airplane that drove both wings symmetrically.
Okay.
But it was scheduled with angle of attack, so when you pulled the turn, it fed in some leading edge flap and gave you more maneuver.
Okay.
You mentioned the A4 and some other airplanes that had leading edge slats. Those were kind of bang bang. They were either takeoff and landing, or they were up and away flying. Yeah,
but they weren't controllable in the cockpit with the A4.
Well, these weren't really controllable. These were scheduled with the flight control computer,
so
according to where you were in the
pilot's
sky.
Control.
Airplane for the speed and the turn you were pulling. It had a landing setting also when the gear handle. So the lab though had taken these the whole flap drive is long gone. Production one is similar, it's a little different. The fuselage wing to match.
Okay, we're back. Okay,
sorry.
The reception is going in and out here today for some reason, so we're back on. So go ahead.
So when they stretched the fuselage, they stretched the wing to match, and they took these blocks and put them in where the flap goes to move the flap 10 inches forward.
Okay.
So when they had it on a pole, and that was about appropriate for the size. You know, the YF-16 had a 20 square foot smaller wing than the production airplane.
Wow, 20
square feet, 280 square feet versus 300 square feet.
That's actually quite a bit.
Yes. So they had these blocks in here, and we've been having to drill out rusted in steel fasteners. And you can see we're putting the leading edge flap back together out here. Originally this flap was one piece. Once again, the lab cut the flap in 3 pieces. The other section is sitting on the ground over here.
Okay.
This was one piece, and it all moved together. We're in the process of splicing it back together. Once again, something easier to do down here on the ground, so that's why we haven't hung the wing on. We don't have the drive mechanism, so we're just going to use aluminum plates. Now these are just temporary. We're fitting things up, checking dimensions. There were seals that went in this area on the original airplane that kind of interlocked around the drives.
Okay, was that like a gasket kind of a thing?
It was just sheet metal that rubbed on one side on the other. There was a rub strip just to make an airtight seal. It was a nice thing. We're just going to close that all out. One of the things we did this morning, just because we're going to be on YouTube and Facebook today, we hung one of the rails, and it was just a straight bolt on. I think last time we talked about how we'd had to repair the wingtip.
Right, yes.
Well, this proves we got it right. We were able to hang a missile on there. This is actually an AMRAAM mock-up. YF-16 really didn't have AMRAAMs, but this is the missile we had handy, and it does fit the rails.
Okay.
Production F-16s will carry either AIM-9s or AIM-120s on the tip. They can do either one. But we've got the launcher. This shows, if you were loading an AIM-9 on here, this is where the umbilical from the missile to the airplane goes on.
Okay.
and all the wiring goes through here. All the wiring for all the hard points also ran through the leading edge.
Okay.
Now, once again, the wiring has long since disappeared off this airplane, and we really don't need to replace that. This is they call the stripper. This would pop the plug off the missile as it left.
Oh, okay.
So this would be spring-loaded this way, and when the missile started to roll, that would pull the plug, let the missile talk to the pilot.
Nice.
So we just thought we'd hang that on there to show everybody how it works.
So when we finish the restoration, are we going to put any kind of weaponry on the airplane?
We're going to try. We're probably going to make some mock-up AIM-9s.
Okay.
In the era when the YF-16 was flying, they would have been AIM-9 Bravos, and then they went to Echoes. You know, they were kind of earlier versions of this. They all fit the same rail, so it doesn't matter.
Something just fell out. It looks like a socket. So.
Oh, yep. I'll pick that up later. We've been putting things together today. The other thing we've been doing, well, let's take a look around this side.
Okay.
One of the things we've been doing is scraping the old paint off the wing, and you can see the stars and bars we've uncovered, and we've been taking dimensions on where it sits so we can put it back. You notice it's very large.
Yes.
And we talked to some folks, and basically Bob Cunningham, the guy that did the paint job, was great at creating optical effects. And what he was going for here was they wanted to make the YF-16 look small, so they got the biggest markings they could fit on the wing.
That's great.
It was kind of, and plus when they went to the Paris Air Show, they wanted everybody to know this is a USAF fighter airplane, no question. Red, white, and blue paint job, and the biggest markings. These markings are the same size as they put on an F-4.
Wow. Yeah, well, in case you missed the red, white, and blue of the airplane, they were going to make sure you saw the markings.
You were going to know whose airplane it was.
Now, is that the same thing you're seeing with the U.S. Air Force? Is that oversized also?
A little bit, yes, because it stretched. They had the whole length of the fuselage to work on.
Oh, that's right, they did, yeah.
So they stretched that writing out. But the markings here, we're uncovering the USAF on the other wing.
Okay.
You can look at this wing over here we've got down on the ground. What we've been doing is to get the old paint off, we've been scraping
Hi, David. Go ahead.
And the trailing edge parts are very thin skinned, so we didn't want to run a scraper on that.
Are they?
They're honeycomb substructure with very thin aluminum skins.
Okay.
So we've been soda blasting it, and that's what you see all over the ground here is baking soda. You don't sandblast aluminum airplanes. You use baking soda or dry ice or a number of other things that are harder than the paint but softer than the aluminum.
And it's environmentally friendly. It's just
it is.
Baking soda.
It's kind of neutral, and we've blown it off for today. This was kind of covered, looked like a snow drift out here a little earlier today.
So I know we've shown this to people before, but you had like this, the gray coating partly is still on here, isn't it?
Yes, this one we're still scraping off, and this one you can see the U here for USAF, and there's the F over there.
Okay.
Out toward the wingtip. Yeah, we're in the process of working this off here. What we found, the best way to get this old paint off is with a heat gun in one hand and a scraper in the other. Okay. But this morning early it was 42 degrees here, and the heat gun wasn't keeping up with how cold the metal was.
Yeah, so, we are changing seasons here a little bit. So
we've got some more work.
We're back, okay.
We got the trailing edge back to bare metal. We'll go back on with primer, and then the red paint will go over, actually white paint, then red paint. One of the other things we're getting ready to work on is you can see one of the horizontal tails over here.
Oh, okay, let's go take a look at that.
Here's the rest of the leading edge flaps. You can see where the lab cut it in 3 sections.
Oh yeah, okay,
That's
you
because
got it all lined up here, don't you?
Yeah. That middle section,
Okay, we're back.
There was an electronic warfare antenna. So they wanted to be able to take that one section off, go take it back to the lab, calibrate the antenna, put it back on their model. They also had one wing set up. This is the one that goes over there, and I showed you those big blocks. They put in hinge fittings that they made up out of solid aluminum.
Okay.
So they could test it with the leading edge flap move to see if it blocked any of the signal.
Oh, so when they had it on the pole, they could change the leading edge flap.
They could just unscrew a fitting and turn it.
Okay.
This is the horizontal tail. This is the left-hand side. You can see the horn here. We're thinking about how we're going to take the paint off this. Sorry, we've got the air compressor just kicked on.
It's all right. We'll live with it.
This has a graphite epoxy skin on it, and I'm not sure I want to take scrapers to the composite skin. So this may be another case of soda blasting.
So this has got that gray material on it too?
Yes.
Okay.
The way this goes on is you take these bolts off, slide this collar out. This is the horn that hooks to the actuator that makes it work. Put that up inside the fuselage, undo this big nut here, and take this bearing off. The whole thing just plugs in. You catch this, put the bolts back in, and it's hooked to the actuator with this fitting down here. Now in our case, we've got a solid steel rod in place of the actuator. Once again, they were taking weight off the jet to put it on a pole.
Right.
So we're working on getting all the flaps back on, get the tails ready. At this point, because of all the work we've decided we're going to do at ground level, it'll probably be after the first of the year before we actually hang the wings on the jet.
So we'll have a winging party.
We'll have a big party. You'll notice it when we do this. And we've been keeping it up on jacks because we want the airplane level, kind of at a known place when we put the wings on, so we can wiggle them into place.
Well, let me put this out to everybody. We're looking for what's referred to as a 3,000 or 4,000 trailer.
4,000 engine stand.
Engine stand. They used them to mount engines and also wings and things like that because it articulates a lot. We're not able to find them. They're not really in the system any longer. If anybody knows what I'm talking about and knows where one might be, we'd sure be glad to hear about that.
We could definitely use a 4,000 stand. Otherwise, we're going to have to make our own support equipment to pick the wing up.
Okay, we've got Shannon Wingfield with us today, and Carlos Flores is checking in also.
Welcome, guys. Any questions from out there?
I don't know. Anybody got any questions for Kevin right now? Or so far about anything that has to do with this airplane? Because Kevin is really the lead on this. Okay, we're not seeing anything yet. There may be something may pop up, so we'll see.
So the good news is we're continuing to make progress on the airplane.
Okay.
Even though we're coming into winter, we've had the jet about 2 years. We did all the fuselage disassembly and putting back together. We found landing gear. We got that under it. We got landing gear doors made. During this month, we're going to pick up the mold for the nose and get that cleaned up and ready to make the new fiberglass composite replacement for the radome that was lost a long time ago. So we're continuing to gradually get along on this project.
Well, and we've had, as you mentioned, the landing gear and the nose and some of these other things. We've had a lot of good luck involved with this too.
People want this airplane to come back together because it is a piece of history. And so they've been helping us and sending us pieces and supplying us with information and parts. And it's been great to have people want to see this airplane come back together.
Yeah, it's almost like it's being crowdsourced a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And the YouTube videos help.
I know these are one of the favorites of the
Facebook crowd. You know, everybody out there likes to see this going together.
So does anybody else have any other questions of Kevin? We've still got a few minutes here, so if anybody's got any questions about this at all, Derek Gibson says looks good so far. Yeah, it sure does, Derek. It looks really good considering how it looked a number of years ago on a pole and when we first got it here. So.
And we've been doing this basically with about 7 or 8 guys, 2 days a week. It's we could do it faster if we had more people or more time or more money, but we're just working it at our own pace and continuing to make steady progress.
Well, and you've got a very dedicated group. Do you want to mention the names of the people who
are
working on this?
Bill Morris is actually the project manager. He takes care of making sure we get what we need and all the paperwork and keeping records of this because the Air Force still owns the jet, so we have to submit reports to them about what we've done. Steve Smith is a retired Lockheed Martin assembler and flight line mechanic, worked in the mod department on F-16, so he has a lot of history. Don Crowley was also out there in General Dynamics and Lockheed assembling F-16s in the factory. Dave Anderson and Jim Duarte are actually guys that came to us not really having an airplane background, although David Anderson's father was one of the test engineers in this, but David and Jim are both custom car restorers.
Okay.
So that's kind of their sheet metal background, and that we were able to put them to work, and they picked things up in a hurry. Rick Ostreicher's been a big part of this. His dad, Phil Ostreicher, was the chief test pilot on the YF-16. And so Phil has a legacy involved in this. This is his family history we're working through here. We've also picked up a couple of young guys, Singh and Cameron, a couple of high school kids that have come over here, and they've been learning a little bit of hands-on stuff. It's fascinating to watch somebody like Smitty that's got 50 years of experience on this, teaching them how to put in rivets and things, showing them hands-on what goes into fixing an airplane.
Well, and our museum director, Brittany Spriggans, has had some time on the hands-on the airplane also.
Yep. We're trying to get her out of the office and show her what's really involved in restoring an airplane from something that's sat outside to a museum piece.
Well, this is just, it's such a beautiful work on your part, and it is such an iconic piece for the city that this is going to be just a real gem for all of us. And I'm going to throw this in just in case anybody is not aware of it. Congresswoman Granger was very instrumental in helping us get this airplane here. In fact, at one point when it was looking tough, she said if she had to fly it down here herself, she was going to do that. So I guess we'll come back with you guys probably, we're into November, so maybe January. We'll do an anniversary, a 2-year anniversary issue. Airports. So a quiet anniversary issue or something, so maybe we can just kind of go back over and do a retrospective and when it showed up and the things that have happened since then. So it's all good. With the arrival of the Hiller, just let everybody know that was our 31st airplane, and after this week, we've got a crew that's going to be going down to Pensacola to bring back an AH-1J Sea Cobra. So that'll be our 32nd airplane, and then we've got a couple more that we'll be looking at in the next few months. So this has been a very active year in terms of people working on airplanes and acquiring airplanes here. So what I want to do at this point is wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. We're very thankful for the people who are working on this airplane and the dedication and the leadership by Kevin. And so from Kevin Renshaw and Jim Hodson here at the Fort Worth Aviation Museum, home of the most touchable warbirds in Texas, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.